Alright guys, in this video I'm going to show you an example of making a put request, which is used to update data on a server. Now I also want to make it so that we can click a button here called edit, and then whatever user we click it for puts that user into the form, and then we can submit and we can update that user. We can make the put request. Alright, so let's go ahead and put a button right next to the delete. I'm actually going to copy the delete button here, and we'll put it right above it, and then let's change the button danger to button primary, and we'll change the click event to on edit click, and we're, instead of passing in the user.id, we're passing in the whole user, and let's change this to edit. Alright, so if we save that, now we have an edit button here as well. Alright, now let's go down here, and I want to add one more property here, which is going to be for the state. Okay, so I want to have an edit state, so let's create one called isEdit, which will be a boolean, and we're going to set that initially to false. Now the reason I'm setting this is so that we can use the same form to add the users and the same form to edit them, and we can just switch some things around to make it work, and this is going to help us with that. Alright, now when we submit it, or when we click the edit button, it's going to call a function called onEditClick. Alright, and then that's going to take in the entire user object. And let's see, all I want to do is then set this dot isEdit to true. Okay, and then I want to set this dot user, okay, the user property, to the user that's being passed in, and since the form, since we have ng model binding to these user variables, then that should automatically fill. So let's save it, and now let's say I go to this Irvin Howell and click edit, and he gets automatically put in the form. If I click this one for Leanne, she gets put in the form. Alright, so works very nice. Now when we submit this, okay, if we look at the form, it's going to on submit. We need to know if it's an edit or if it's an add. So what I'm going to do is pass along isEdit, which is the boolean value, will be true or false, and then when we go down to on submit, that's also going to take in isEdit. Okay, and then what we want to do is check for that, so we'll say if isEdit and then else. Okay, now what we have here is to add a user, so let's cut that, let's put that in else. That's what we want to happen if it's not an edit. Alright, but if it is an edit, then we want to call an update user function in the service, which we haven't created yet. So let's say this dot data service dot update user, and we're going to pass in this dot user. Alright, and it's going to be an observable, so we'll say subscribe, and in here let's say user, put an arrow function. Oops, what'd I do? Okay, arrow function, and then we want, what we want to do when it comes back is we want to splice out the one we're editing and then add it back. So we're going to use a loop for that, just like we did with the delete. So I'm going to copy this, paste that in, and we're going to look for the one that we just edited. We're going to match the ID, except instead of just being ID, it's going to be this dot user dot ID. Okay, and then we're going to splice it out from this dot users. Now we're not just deleting it, we're updating it, so we want to add it back. We want to add the new version back. So we're going to go under the for loop and say this dot users dot unshift, and then in here let's say this dot user. Okay, so that'll add it back. Alright, so let's save that. Now we're going to go to our data service and create the update user. So I'm going to copy, let's see, let's copy delete user. Okay, and let's see, update user. And let's see, that's going to take in the user itself. And then we want to use a put request, so we're going to replace delete with put. And it's going to go to user slash and then the ID, but we also want to put another parameter in here, which is going to be the user that's passed in here. All right, and then instead of just doing ID, this is going to be user.id, and then that should do it. So let's save, and let's see, we're getting property ID does not exist on type. So it's talking about this right here. So what I'll do is, I think I could just add it like that. Yeah. And then let's go to Leanne and click edit. And let's change, let's say she got married. Her name is now Leanne Smith. You'll see it actually changes here as well as I type, which is pretty cool. All right, but if I submit, that actually makes the put request. All right, so now we've looked at get, we've looked at post, delete, and put for the HTTP module.